Well, good afternoon. Today's announcement is probably the worst kept secret in town, but I'm really pleased to be joined today by members of the Board of Detroit Police Commissioners, members of City Council, members of the various police union leadership, community activists, and this does feel like a community announcement. On May 10th, we were a little bit surprised when Chief Craig unveiled his plans for the future. And at a different time in Detroit, it would have been a problem. The years when you had 5 police chiefs in 5 years and you always scrambled would have been a period of instability. But it's a different day at the Detroit Police Department. We have a very strong and deep leadership team. And it took just a matter of days before I stood here with the support of the Board of Police Commissioners to name former Assistant Chief James White as the interim chief, and then his first order of business was to make Todd Bettison the first Assistant Chief. And we had a team that I think is as strong as any police department in the country, but they had an opportunity to prove themselves. And this was our first process where a Board of Police Commissioners that is a majority elected actually performed under the 2011 charter. And that process provided for the Board of Police Commissioners to hire a search firm, do a search, and give the mayor a list of candidates from which I would select one and refer that individual on to City Council. I want to thank Reverend Holly and all the members of the Board of Police Commissioners. What they did was remarkable. In an 8-week period, they brought in a very professional firm, conducted a national search, went through a number of outstanding candidates, and they last week sent me 3 excellent candidates, any one of whom would have been highly qualified. And I interviewed all 3. I felt good about all 3, but I think anybody in this city who has watched the way James White has handled himself in the last 2 months feels very good about where the Detroit Police Department is heading. And we had a big advantage. When national searches for Dallas, Texas, and Columbus, Ohio went for chiefs, they came to Detroit. They hired people from the Detroit Police Department to run other major cities in the country. We had the advantage of having the talent here and being able to pick somebody that we were highly confident of. And so I have been extremely pleased. I think you're seeing more police presence. We are seeing the violence start to become curbed. We are seeing a police chief who supports the men and women of the department when they act appropriately, but also doesn't hesitate to say we're going to have high standards when a particular officer does not. And that is what the vast majority of the men and the women of the Detroit Police Department want. This city is enormously supportive of the Detroit Police Department, and I think they're going to continue to be enormously supportive of Chief James White. So today, I will be sending my recommendation to Detroit City Council. City Council has 30 days to act, and then, assuming they don't disapprove this, Chief White will be the permanent chief. And with that, you know, people are always looking for fights and controversy and the like. I talked to every member of the Board of Police Commissioners, all 11 members, consulted them throughout this process. Everybody doesn't agree, because if everybody agrees, you don't need everybody. But people all expressed their opinions, all felt good about the direction we're going, and I think there's no doubt that James White is the overwhelming choice of the Board of Police Commissioners as well as my choice. But the fact that this process was handled so professionally, no dramas, no embarrassments, professional interviews, professional lists, is a reflection on the men and women of the Board of Police Commission. And with that, I'd like to introduce the man who has headed this up, the chair of the Board of Police Commissioners, Reverend Jim Holly. Reverend?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you for those of you who are here today and those of the city of Detroit. On behalf of the Board of Police Commissioners, I offer our congratulations to you, Chief James White. I understand that according to Time Adams Staffing Services, there were over 44 interesting people that wanted to come into the city of Detroit and for the interest in this job. I think we owe that to the men and women of the Detroit Police Department and also the citizens of Detroit. And so for that, I think you really are top of the notch. We congratulate you. I want to say to you that three candidates were sent to the mayor. All three of them were outstanding. And certainly, however, the Chief White was the choice. And I'm sure that I can tell you on behalf of the majority, if not all, of the police commissioners are very satisfied. I wanted to also let you know we're waiting on the city council to do their part and have their role in seeing the final. But for the most part, we are very satisfied with how this was handled by the mayor and by the wonderful people of the Detroit Police Commission. And for that, we're grateful. At this time, I ask Councilman McAllister would come and have remarks.
Thank you, Reverend Holly, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. And first, I'm going to say, Chief James White, welcome back, because it was a concern that only an earlier part of this year that he left us and took on another mission. But, you know, you can tell what's in a person's heart. Coming from the Detroit Police Department, it's very important that when you have someone that has come up through the ranks and the people know and the people love and the people understand, it's a very important factor in that. And although there were three candidates, and I have to thank the Board of Police Commissioners for what they've done, but although there were three candidates, again, when you have someone that has come up through the ranks and someone that has been a part of the community knows, that's a very important factor. And I'm pretty sure, Chief, when you come before the City Council, you will be able to address those issues and concerns that will be looking at. So again, I just want to thank you, the Board of Police Commissioners, Reverend Holly, Mayor, as well as welcome back, as well as the police officers of the Detroit Police Department. One of the things that I do know is that Chief White can deal with the management portion. And we have, of course, associations and the concerns of them. And one of the people that I like to bring forward is the president of the Lieutenant Sergeants Association, President Mark Young. Thank you.
Welcome. Congratulations, Chief. Thank you. I'm fortunate enough to have some time on the job, and I knew you when you first came on. I was impressed, and I'm not surprised about today. I thank you. I appreciate you for always having an open door policy. We haven't always agreed, but there's always been respect. That'll continue. You're doing an outstanding job. You already have. One of the things I love about you, Chief, is that you understand people, you understand culture, and you understand how policing is changing with technology. It's crucial. The most important thing that I love about you, honestly, is that you listen. You listen. And that's crucial. Listening. Without listening, there's no understanding. You're going to do great things. We're not going to always agree, but at the end of the day, there's always going to be respect and appreciation and admiration. I respect you tremendously, and I have the great honor of introducing Reverend Wendell Anthony. Thank you, Chief. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Let me say good afternoon to everybody, and let me first of all commend the mayor for his identification of such excellent talent that we have in the city and elsewhere, and my good friend and brother Jim Holly and the Board of Police Commissioners for the work that they have done to bring us to this point. I think that what has come out now is a very good option and selection for the city of Detroit. I think that either one of the three could have been easily identifiable and made to rise to the position of leading the Detroit Police Department. I'm particularly pleased that working with Chief White will be Deputy Chief Todd Bettison. I think that's a great team. I think also Chief White comes at a time when policing is under scrutiny. And I'm going to be very frank. Detroit has been blessed to the degree that we've been able to work cooperatively with the police department. We can have safety and security at the same time. We can respect the police, and the police can respect the community. That's one of the things that I like about James White. He has a background of mental education and psychological training, which you need. He understands people. He has demonstrated himself to be transparent by recent events, and you need to be transparent when it comes to the community. That's how you build trust. That's how you build relationships. You build them before you need them, and we need them. And so from a community perspective, we can agree to be disagreeable, but we don't have to do it in a way that is uncivil. And I think that we have a good situation here today. So having said that, we look forward to what the end will be. We know that we need to have a good police department, good police in the department, good police on the street, with good community people behind them. When they come right, the community comes right. And that's what we want in the city of Detroit. And so I'm pleased that James White is right for this job. And we look forward to that. And the other thing I want to say is that I'm glad that he ain't getting ready to run for governor. And that there ain't no hidden agenda that we getting ready to find out coming out the closet. And so I'm pleased to introduce not the interim chief, but the chief, who will soon, we understand and hope City Council will bless, and all the protocols that go with that. And we look forward to a great tenure of understanding and communication and working together for the benefit of all of us under the leadership of Chief James E. White. Let's welcome him.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. I am extremely honored and humbled to be here today, and I want to thank all of the community partners that I have behind me, the wonderful words that have been said from the union leadership, and certainly our community. You know, as an assistant chief here for so many years, I knew how important the community was and is. But having spent 3 months now in this chief seat as the interim chief, the community is not only supportive, but we need them. We need the community. And I have not been more happy than being able to interact. And let me be clear, all the conversations aren't, cotton candy and sunny days. We've had some very crucial conversations, but as Mark Young stated, always with respect. I witness on a day in and day out basis positive relationship building with this community and positive relationship building with this police department. I also want to address a couple things before I get into a few comments that I want to make. This police department has amazing community relations, amazing. And I talk to my colleagues around this country from my days with the consent judgment, and oftentimes they ask, how do you all do it? You all can get people to show up for candy on Halloween with no complaints. You can get, community investment in the programs. How do you do it? And as Wendell Anthony indicated, you have to build those relationships before you need them. And the police department does that. And it's very important to me that we continue that. We need to have these strong relationships, and that's done with credibility in policing. That's done with excellence in policing. And certainly two things can be true at once. You can hold officers accountable, but you can support good policing. And our community deserves excellence in policing. And as I stand here before you today, humbled and honored for this opportunity, I want you to know candidly that I'm going to support these officers, but I'm going to require that there is excellence and a drive towards excellence in policing and continue to build these relationships in a transparent way. So you know what's happening with your police department, and you also build trust with this police department. So as I get into my prepared comments, I do want to talk about that, it's been 90 days plus since I've had this honor, serving as interim chief since June 1st. I set a goal with my command team for violence reduction. And those who know me know that I am stat-driven. So I want to look at what can we do? Are we doing absolutely everything we can to impact crime, recognizing that everybody can't be arrested, everybody can't go to prison, and that's going to solve your crime problem. We all know that there are a number of issues, social issues, psychological issues, mental health issues, poverty issues, education issues that drive crime. But we can respectfully enforce crime and bring numbers down and make sure that our community is safe. They responded. We've got a fantastic command team assembled here, and we're experiencing a 20% overall crime reduction. Now, we're not patting ourselves on the back and celebrating anything, because one homicide, one child shot is one too many. But we are on the right path to eradicating some of this violence that we're seeing. Also, in the 3 months, the officers here have responded to nearly 70,000 police runs, 70,000 police runs, calls for service. And that's when people have dialed 911. That's not the calls that they see as they're patrolling. We've responded to 2,200 calls for service for mentally ill folks, people who are, dealing with mental health crisis, a disease that is impacting our community in great numbers. Certainly, we recognize it when we see people making poor choices, long-term decisions on short-term problems. You get cut off in traffic, someone pulls out a gun, shoots somebody. You can arguably say this person is suffering from mental illness. I mean, that's not a logical and reasonable way to deal with minor conflict. The officers are doing a fine job with that. We've recovered 1,900 firearms, 1,500 gun arrests have been made, and we continue to show up day in and day out. And certainly we've had a number of incidents that have been highlighted in the media, and we're going to deal with those incidents transparently. We recognize we've got an opportunity to make some improvements with our processes that are in place. But when you look at the total overall numbers, you see the volume of work that's being done. We've implemented a respectful and aggressive 5-point crowd management plan throughout the city, which includes addressing the drag racing issue. We've turned a corner on the drag racing issue using technology, also surveillance, and again, stopping it before it starts so you don't get into these situations where you're getting in the chases and people are getting hurt. Just this weekend alone, we've made 7 felony arrests, 2 misdemeanor arrests, and 18 vehicles were recovered. And that part is important because you stop the behavior before it starts. As I thank the clergy, Reverend Jim Holly, Reverend Wendell Anthony, I want to say that we're going to continue to need our clergy partners in order for us to be the best police department that we can be and to address the issues that we're seeing with violence in our community and crime in our community. I also want to thank Prosecutor Kim Worthy, who has welcomed me since I've been in the seat. She's worked with a number of cases that we have here. She's committed to resolving a lot of our gun crimes that we have, and I'm happy for that collaboration and continue to work with her. I want to thank the Board of Police Commissioners for having the confidence in me and selecting me for this role in the police department. And finally, I want to thank the Honorable Mayor Mike Duggan for his belief in my leadership and trusting me at a very important time in history with this police department. I will forever be humbled and honored that he chose me at this crucial time in leadership to lead this police department. Since I've been here, we've lost 2 officers, Corporal Darrell Cross, natural causes, as well as last week, Corporal Khalil Biddle. And I bring that up for a couple of reasons. These officers, day in and day out, dealing with loss and trauma, we are a family, but they show up every single day, and I just want them to know that I appreciate them. This leadership team appreciates them. Our mayor appreciates you, and you all don't know how many times we sit in meetings, well, weekly, talking about ways to make your lives better, economically and otherwise. There is no more important time in leadership than we have right now in this country as it relates to law enforcement. This time cannot be wasted. These big titles and powerful seats are nothing if we don't do something with the time that we are in them. And we have to keep these seats pristine for the next people who take them. This is not my seat. I sit in it temporarily, but I have to keep it pristine for the next leader who takes this seat. And it's my hope that they look at my leadership and want to aspire to do what I've done and what I'm getting the opportunity to do in this organization. Time is very important, and we don't have a lot of it to waste. I want to share an inspirational poem, and I am no poet, so bear with me. But I want to share an inspirational poem that I draw from when I'm down and I think about the importance of moving forward. And it's from a civil rights leader, Benjamin Mays, Dr. Benjamin Mays, the late, great Dr. Benjamin Mays. And it's called I Only Have Just a Minute. I only have just a minute, only 60 seconds in it. Forced upon me, can't refuse it, didn't seek it, didn't choose it, but it's up to me to use it. I must suffer if I lose it, give account if I abuse it. Just a tiny minute, but eternity is in it. I say that to you because I recognize the importance of the time that I occupy and the space that I occupy. And my commitment to this community, to this department, is to maximize this minute that I have. Thank you very much. I guess I'm taking questions.
Chief, congratulations, Sean, over at Channel 4.
Yes, sir.
Of course, you have been dealing with challenges ever since you were interim chief, and no surprise, you're well aware of the challenge facing you now when you handed a probationary officer his badge on Friday, hours later arrested in Greektown for a fight. Now we're learning about possible racial comments that the probationary officer was making while he was being held in detention. Is there any way you could bring a guy like that back, or is he going to be fired immediately?
Well, as you know, we've suspended him, and we're going to conduct a full investigation, and I'm going to have that matter to resolution within 7 days. The team has been given a deadline that this will not be a heavy lift. We were to pull the video, conduct this investigation, and conclude it in 7 days.
All right, thank you, Chief.
Yep.
Hi, Donna Afana with the Free Press. Good to see you. You had mentioned surveillance, which has been such a controversial topic in Detroit for both Black and brown communities. How will you address that going forward so that communities feel comfortable with that technology? And on the mental health aspect, you had previously mentioned you wanted to seek grant funding for mental health services for police officers in each precinct. Where is that standing, and how are you going to move forward with that?
With regards to the surveillance, so as an African-American male myself, certainly I'm sensitive to all issues regarding any technology or processes in policing that violate a people, particularly people of color, and certainly in our community. The specific surveillance that I'm talking about is people sitting in vehicles posing as people who are going to do drag racing. And that's effective, and it works, and we're going to continue to do that. And certainly, as it relates to technology, strong policy, peer review, and a zero tolerance for anyone who violates that policy.
And then mental health?
Mental health, we've got some CIT grant work being done right now. The officers are being trained throughout the city. We've got about, as my last numbers were, over 100 officers. Our goal is by end of year to have over half the department trained in crisis intervention training. We also have, and I'm very happy with this, we had a couple barricaded gun people recently, and our CIT partner was in the vehicle, a mental health professional, was able to talk that citizen out of that home who had just committed a very violent act without further injury to the citizen or to the officers, and that person got treatment and was later charged, or I'm sorry, got treatment. I don't know the status of the charges yet.
And then a question for Mayor Duggan. What is it about Chief White that, really stuck out to you? He stuck out to you when you were choosing the interim chief. I mean, is there something about the other candidates that just kind of made you think, this isn't right for Detroit?
It wasn't about anybody else, but was some time ago that I really believed that Chief White was the future of the department. He stepped in the COVID crisis a year and a half ago, and the department didn't miss a beat. He implemented things like taser policies, which I was not at first enthusiastic of, and put in such a thorough policy and so well researched on how the community is safer if officers deploy it properly than if they're forced to go to deadly weapons. He just, every time he came in, he was prepared, he made sense, he cared about people, and so my only challenge was when I took him to dinner, and at the end of the dinner, he said the one thing I said when I came here is I said I wasn't going to quit my full-time job to take an interim job. He said, no, I got to go home and tell my daughter I'm going to take the interim job. But as I said to him then, the interim chief is going to have the opportunity to prove himself or herself. And if you believe in yourself, you want to be the interim chief. And if you don't believe in yourself, somebody else is going to have that opportunity. And so you're talking about a very prominent position in state government running the Civil Rights Commission. To have quit that come back here on an interim basis, knowing what he had to go through, going through the process like everybody else with the Board of Police Commissioners. I think it just shows how much he loves the city, how much he loves this department, and I'm glad he went through it.
Thank you.
Hi, Peter Maxwell, it's Channel 7 Action News. Chief White, there was a barricaded situation over on Joy Road in Livernois about around 1:30. Do you guys have an update on that?
Yeah, I was briefed on it earlier. My last briefing prior to this was that it's still underway.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor of the board, just curious to recap to make sure, 3 candidates it came down to, including the now chief, and how many others showed interest, and are you sharing who those other 2 candidates were, please?
If I understand the question, we were given 3 out of the 7 or 9.
Okay.
It came down to 3. A couple of them dropped out for different reasons that I have no control, we didn't have any control of. And so basically it came down to the 3. Our job is to, according to the charter, is to give 3 to the mayor, and he makes the decision. Chief White, the now chief, was one of the 3, and the choice was his. But we just submitted 3 to the mayor's office.
Thank you. Mayor, point of clarity then, you interviewed 3 people, including the chief, and are you sharing who you sat
Yeah,
down with?
so there were 44 names. The police commission cut them to 9. And then after doing their interviews, recommended 3. And so the 3 finalists were Chief White, Chief Mike Cox of the city of Ann Arbor, and Robert Dunlap, who's the administrator at the jail. And you want to talk about outstanding people, I remember him as Commander Dunlap, the 11th Precinct, when I was a prosecutor, somebody I've had enormous admiration for 20 years. Chief Cox in Ann Arbor, if I didn't already have a phenomenal HR director in Denise Starr, I would have hired him by the end of the interview. His vision of human development was just exceptional. I mean, these were great candidates that the Board of Police Commissioners brought forward. But of course, we had the truly outstanding candidate here already. And so I think the 2 runners-up understand that this was no reflection on them. It's just James White, I think, has the confidence of this community.
Thank you. Sir.
Hey, Chief, congratulations.
Thank you.
You said 20% overall reduction in crime. Now, was that during just the time since you've taken over, or is that year-to-date?
That is year-to-date. I'm sorry, strike that. I'm just looking at my notes. Since I've taken over.
Since you've taken over. I just wanted to
All right.
clarify that. Thanks, congratulations.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much, everyone.